I don't want to hear your pitiful excuses.
Well, I thought it was a steamy pile of garbage.
I can't believe you don't see it. What are you, Helen Keller? Good evening, everyone. Welcome for another edition of Film Snobbery Live. I am your benevolent host, the film snob Nic Baisley. First of all, I want to welcome everyone to the show. We've got a great show for you tonight. I want to, first of all, kick off First Glance Month here at Film Snobbery. This is the first show of a month-long series of shows where we'll be highlighting different filmmakers that'll be spotlighted and featured in the First Glance Film Festival in Hollywood coming up this April. We're going to start it off by interviewing two very talented filmmakers, but first, we have an announcement that requires everyone's attention. Jerry, I believe you have some contests that you want to talk about?
Hi all, and yes, I do have a contest. We're going to kick off the show with our first contest, courtesy of First Glance Film. We're going to give away a Movie Maker magazine subscription, a one-year subscription to Movie Maker magazine. So what I need you guys to do, I'm going to write something in the chat, and I want you all to type it up on Twitter and tweet it out. If you won a contest already, feel free to enter, but you're not going to win. So I'm going to send it right now. So write that out on Twitter, tweet it out. First one to get it out there wins. So, and you get a Movie Maker magazine subscription.
Yay for Movie Maker magazine! And if you haven't seen this month's issue, check out our article because we're in it. It's a great magazine. We actually we really pimp them because they really do actually kind of get independent film, as well as they also do cover some of the larger stuff too. It's good stuff. So thank you, Jerry. I think what we're going to do now is we're going to get into our first guest. This guy is he's one of those people, like anyone who works in animation, whether it be in voice or actually as an animator. He's always someone that's like, oh, I think I heard of him, but now you're definitely going to get to know him. His name is David Baas, and his short SKYLIGHT is going to be playing at the FirstGlance Film Festival, and we're going to show you the trailer for that right now, and we're going to talk to the man who directed it right after we come back from the trailer. So, see you in a moment.
Too barren for the likes of men. Here dwells the majestic penguin, proud, unaffected by the harsh climate. Fiercely territorial.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome a very special guest this evening. I want to welcome the filmmaker who's bringing to you the First Glance film, animated film, short, David Baas. Good evening, David.
Good evening, Nick. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
No, thank you for being our first guest on the month-long First Glance Film Festival month that we're having here. I really appreciate you coming on and calling all the way from Canada.
Yeah, this is going to rack up some charges on the old cell phone, so we better get moving.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry about that. So, I think one of the questions, first of all, that everyone in the audience, you're actually the first animator that we've ever interviewed. One of the questions that the people in the audience, I'm sure, want to hear is, how the heck did you go about becoming a professional animator?
The first step was to get an education. I went to university. Out of high school, I was in a fine arts program. I got bored with that pretty fast. And then when I got fed up with that, I enrolled in the world-famous animation program at Sheridan College, which is in a town called Oakville, just outside of Toronto. So I'd always had an interest in animation as a kid, but I actually didn't know that there was somewhere you could study it seriously in Canada until I was an adult. So they have a 3-year program there. There's Canadians peppered all throughout the animation industry, all over the world. I have friends at every major studio. I can't see almost any film with any animation or visual effects in it without seeing the name of somebody that I know or someone I went to school with.
And you are you're currently one of the lead animators over at Stars.
Yeah, I'm the head of the animation department at Stars Animation in Toronto, Canada.
And if anyone is sitting there saying, well, I know that name. You guys might have seen a movie that came out over the summer. It came out over the summer by Tim Burton, produced by Tim Burton and directed by Shane Acker, called Nine. Not to be confused with the Gary Marshall musical Nine, but yes. And by the way, I actually really enjoyed that film. I thought the animation on it was excellent. I actually thought that it was one of the few movies of the year that should have actually been about 15 to 20 minutes longer.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way when I saw the finished picture. And always when you're working on something in sort of the pit, it disappears for a while. It goes into post, comes back with some new edits and new sound and stuff like that. There were a couple of surprises for the crew, but yeah, we were a bit startled when it was over. It's just like, we could stand to see a little bit more ourselves.
Yeah. Now, are there differences in promoting a short animated film like SKYLIGHT than a like a live action independent movie, or even a feature length animated film like Nine?
Well, I think like a lot of the big differences are like something like Nine was an independent feature, but did actually have a backer and a distributor. Like, I've been to quite a few film festivals out on the circuit, so I've met live action filmmakers and animation filmmakers. So the big difference for me is I really do all the distribution myself. I did get some funding from the Bravo television station here in Canada, but as far as actually getting it out there, like, I write all the names on the envelopes and I burn the DVDs. And I found meeting a lot of live action filmmakers, both short and feature, it's the same thing. It's just a lot of legwork. And I do know some short filmmakers who had corporate sponsors and things like that, and they don't have as much control over their work necessarily. I can show mine wherever I want, whenever I want, kind of thing. I just have to spend the time and money to do it.
Okay. My next question is, you are also, little known fact possibly, that you also have taught animation courses as well. You were a professor.
That's right.
Were the courses that you taught more geared towards animation theory, or more of like the nuts and bolts of the technology? Is it more about knowing how to animate well on paper first, or anything like that, or is it really about learning, like Lightwave or Maya or whatever it is you guys are using now?
It was really a really good mix of both, actually. I ran the digital animation program, so I was teaching Maya specifically, and I also worked on the development of that program. I used to work for what was Alias Wavefront at the time, that's now Autodesk. But I was trained as a 2D animator myself. So what would happen in my program is the students would go through 2 years of traditional animation, then I would get them the digital animation, and so we really made a point of really applying all those 2D animation principles, and worked with a lot of simple shapes to get started out, just like 2D animators do when they're doing bouncing balls and cubes and things like that. And really, in designing the curriculum, I taught at Seneca College in Toronto, Canada. There's a lot of technical stuff that you have to learn to work in this field. A little bit of math and a little bit of logic. And when I started teaching seriously, I'd been in the field for 10 years and had worked on an Oscar-winning short film previously and stuff like that. I just made myself a checklist of what do I wish that I had known when I started, and just made sure that was really embedded in the curriculum.
What now, as far as when you've been involved in other animation projects, obviously, my question is, what kind of drove you to actually start creating your own projects? Was it just, occasionally you just need to do something that's yours, or was it that you tell me, like, what is the genesis and the story of SKYLIGHT?
Well, actually, the genesis was, it was actually a one-panel little cartoon that I drew about 20 years ago. And it was kind of like a little Far Side cartoon panel that was basically what turned out to be the punchline of my film. And then when I was actually studying at Sheridan College, once again, this was a long time ago, this was in the early 90s, I actually made a 1.5-minute version of this same film as a film project there, just like a little gag film. And as I've been working, at a few different studios, both in the States and Canada, in computer graphics, I saw the Pixar short at the SIGGRAPH convention for the Birds, and it was short, it was funny, it had one camera angle, and in some ways it just really reminded me of sort of the Spartan nature of my film. Like, it didn't have a lot of big expansive sets, and it sort of had one joke kind of thing. I mean, their film had a lot of fancy technology to create feathers and stuff like that, but at the core, to look at the storyboards, it was really short, simple, and sweet. And I thought, I wonder if my 15-year-old little sketch cartoon would be funny if I made it in CG. And I make all the decisions myself, and whatever happened, top to bottom, animation, rendering, lighting, it would all be my fault. So that's what I wanted, was to take all the blame myself.
Well, I'm sure you will not be found at fault for not being funny, because I think goofy-looking penguins are always a treat for everybody. I personally can never get enough of them at the aquarium here, and to see them animated is even better. So, and you kind of were talking about a little bit earlier about how your courses go, and how they do some traditional 2D animation as well as integrating within 3D animation, and yourself coming from the 2D world and working in the 3D world. Do you actually have a preference of drawing freehand on paper or on directly on film cells, or versus actually using like a light pen and actually working exclusively in the digital realm?
Well, I've gotten really, really comfortable in digital realm since I started working in it, and even during the time that I was in school, amongst my peers, I was not a particularly strong draftsman. I think I had a fair sense of timing, and I was a pretty good editor. But I know people that can just draw so spectacularly. Like, I work with some feature film animators now who've done like high level work at Disney and stuff like that. And I just didn't think I would ever get that good. And in some ways, being able to work and to be comfortable in the computer environment was a bit of a relief, where the character's kind of already drawn for you. It turned out, despite being a very poor math student in high school, I really had a head for the technical stuff as well.
You and me both. We're very similar in that regard. You are you're being a professor. I've been a student in college before, and I realized that I was a very poor student. But have you ever learned anything from one of your students?
Oh, yeah, all the time, almost every day, because it's only like basically one generation displaced the students I was teaching, but they came from a sort of a different world and were inspired by different things. Whereas I grew up on 2D cartoons, they grew up on 3D stuff. And there are so many little tips and tricks in working in all the different softwares on the computer, like Maya and Photoshop and compositing programs. The portions of my film that I wasn't particularly strong at myself, like I'm not a very good painter, and color is not a strong suit either. I found my best students and said, "Can you guys help me start getting this thing off the ground and do some color sketches for me?" And stuff like that. And some of my former students work with me now on my animation crew at Stars. Well,
that's definitely a take your course, maybe possibly get a job opportunity. You can't go wrong with that. Now, speaking of some of your students, and I'm sure that you're seeing more and more of them now as the increased accessibility of these animation tools are becoming prevalent. Has the ability for students and people who are just interested in animation in general, has their ability to get their hands on the tools to do this job, has this changed the landscape of what you do? And do you feel that maybe you're facing stiffer competition in your field now?
In some ways, yes. In some ways, no. Like certainly, there's a lot more competition out there, but there's also just a lot more to do. I mean, now there's a category at the Oscars for feature animated films where there wasn't a few years ago. So feature films are coming out from all sorts of countries. There's stuff on the web. There's short films, and different types of digital imagery making affects every aspect of filmmaking, like animation filmmaking, live action filmmaking, and it's a huge industry. Whereas when I got out of school in the early '90s, there wasn't that much going on. Like digital animation, it was really just a flicker. There hadn't been a feature yet. Terminator 2 had come out, but that was it. So sure, there's a lot of competition out there, but the whole animation industry has just exploded exponentially. So there's great opportunities everywhere.
Do you feel that you really have to be on top of the next big thing, technologically speaking, in order to keep up with your industry, or does your position at this point, is it more supervisorial so that way you can basically tell other people that they have to be on top of the things?
There's a certain amount of having to keep on top of things, and as we graduate, through different productions, we use different versions of the software, so you do have to keep up. And also, at STARS, we also have an in-house software development team, and I collaborate with them to create, additional proprietary software for my team to use, and we all contribute to making sure that the data pipeline flows properly. But really, for people that are aspiring to get into the industry, the technical portion of it is one thing. But if you want to work as an artist, that's what you have to study. You have to draw, you have to paint, you have to photograph, you have to act. And there are some people that do fabulous work in the field that do none of those things, like people that write code and write tools and things like that. But the people that I really admire, that I work with, they've constantly got anatomy books at their desk, the paintings of the old masters, things like that.
What is the hardest part about? And we got a question from one of the people here. What's the hardest part about recreating realistic motion?
Well, it depends how realistic you want it to be. The easiest way to create realistic motion is to use motion capture, but you can spot that pretty easily. I think the best case for motion capture is to basically not get live action stuntmen killed off. I have trouble following it when it's part of a narrative. It's like rotoscoping in the 2D world. I was the animation director on a short animated film called Ryan for the National Film Board of Canada, and that won the Oscar for Best Animated Short in 2005. That has very realistic animation in it. It's not motion capture, and it was based on a conversation between two living people that we sort of reanimated, and it's really just about attention to detail and learning how to act. We just did a lot of research. We looked at tapes of the people in live action, and we just reinterpreted it. Some animators are very, very good at different things. Some are good at realistic motion. Some are good at cartoony things. Some are good at fights. Some are good at dialogue. It's just one of the disciplines that they all require, like, just scrutiny and research, and just being able to see, really, is the trick.
Bill from FirstGlance Films actually asked a question of, how long does it take to animate a short like SKYLIGHT?
Sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
Oh, sure. Bill from FirstGlance Films actually asked, how long does it take to animate a short like SKYLIGHT?
Ooh, well, that's kind of an embarrassing question, Bill, because I can't really say in man hours or man months how long it actually took, because it was a part-time project. I was either teaching or doing studio work. But I would say once we got it into to CG, it was an on and off project for 5 years.
Do You,
So a lot of weekends and evenings.
I have two questions. Well, one question from an audience member, but I want to preface it with another. Do you work exclusively in Canada, or do you do a lot of traveling between Canada and the U.S. for work?
Right now, I work exclusively in Canada. I did work in the U.S. for about 4 years. I worked in New York City in the late '90s. Doing a lot of like television series work, like kids TV and commercials and stuff like that. And I worked for another studio in Massachusetts and did an amusement park ride.
That was that. By the way, we're in Massachusetts right now.
Where are you?
I am in the Worcester area.
Oh, okay. I lived in Williamstown in the Berkshires.
Yeah. I know exactly where you're at. Well, the follow-up question to what I had asked is actually from a fellow Canuck like yourself. What are the advantages and disadvantages of working in animation in Canada versus the U.S.?
Well, there's a lot more competition in the U.S. Like such a huge portion of the businesses in a city like Los Angeles. So there's a lot of work out there. But on the other hand, we've been very fortunate at Stars Animation that we've managed to land a couple of really good projects, and quite a few American veterans have come to work with us. Actually, like people that have worked at the big studios like Sony and Feature Disney, etc. So it's a smaller market in Canada, but there's a great deal of technical and artistic talent in Canada, and the big companies know that. They're all setting up in Canada right now. Pixar is setting up in Canada. Sony is setting up in Canada in British Columbia. So I think that line is starting to blur.
All right. Well, and that's actually really interesting, and probably the Canadian animators might have to start watching their backs if the U.S. is going to throw some competition at them. Although I think that you guys have a very distinct style of animation on a lot of things. Not saying I could spot it, really easily, but I think that especially what's come out of Stars seems to have a fairly distinct look to it. But that's a good thing. Your film has screened and won awards at several film festivals. Do you have a favorite festival story so far of any of the ones that you've either been to or were accepted at?
Well, I've got two stories that I really like, actually. I mean, it's nice to win some awards and get some notice, because I was just when you finish something like that, you think, oh, I'm just going to be sitting alone watching this in my basement. Everyone's going to hate it. But one thing that was a real treat that I didn't really expect was there was a film festival in Rochester, New York, which was the oldest short film festival in the U.S. And I'll be honest, I didn't think that it was going to be their sort of theme was, they called it movies on a shoestring. So I thought it might be sort of like a homespun little thing without a great deal of attendance, but it's not that far from Toronto. It's just across the border at Niagara. But wow, it was such a great festival. Like, it was a real cultural event in Rochester on a sunny, bright Saturday afternoon. They had a full auditorium and just fantastically high caliber films that I've seen on the festival circuit ever since. So when you first start going out into the festival world, you're thinking, okay, I've got to play in New York, I've got to play in Hollywood, and this, that, and the other. But you just never know what something's going to be like until you get there. Another real treat is the great animator, short film animator, and feature animator, actually, Bill Plimpton. He's actually become a friend of mine. We've crossed paths before, but I keep bumping into him on the circuit. But I was at the festival, the film festival in Savannah, Georgia, in November, and they called all the animators up on stage, and neither Bill or I knew each other were there. And as we were getting up on stage to introduce our films, and Bill's like a 2-time Oscar nominee, it was kind of like, "Hey Dave, hey Bill," and the 18-year-old that I was when I was in high school, like he was one of my idols back then. That 18-year-old was very proud of me to stand shoulder to shoulder with Bill on a stage.
It's always nice that when you can find a little gem of a festival, and B, especially when you can connect with someone that you've looked up to for a while and they actually live up to that expectation. That's always great. And speaking of great, you've been a great guest this evening. Thank you very much for all the information. You are our first animator that we've had on the show, and I find that to be a really interesting subject because you don't see a lot of independent animated films.
It takes a really long time. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's probably why. But I've from seeing the trailer and the stills and everything from SKYLIGHT, I highly recommend that everyone seek it out. Hopefully, it'll be on VOD somewhere, maybe at FirstGlance Film or somewhere else, or on iTunes or Amazon or wherever. If people want to find more information about this movie right now, David, where can they go?
Well, right now, the best place to go is my website, which is just www.skylight-short.com. And right now, it's pretty much just on the festival circuit, so it's not airing on TV or video on demand or anything like that. But that will be upcoming. I've got a couple of discussions along those lines going on. So that would be the place to look, and it has all the past festival dates and the upcoming ones all listed.
Well, I really look forward to seeing it regardless, because I do have, as I mentioned before, a penchant for goofy-looking penguins, and I also, hopefully, if I'm lucky, I'll be able to see it at the festival, but that's up to my audience. But thank you very much again for taking the time to call in, David. I really greatly appreciate it. I want to tell everyone again, check out SKYLIGHT, and also check it out at its next festival run at the FirstGlance Film Festival in Hollywood this April, and keep an eye out for what David Baas is doing at Stars, because I really enjoyed 9, and now that makes me want to know what he's working on next. So keep an eye on him. Thank you very much for coming on. It's so greatly appreciated. Thank you for being our first guest for the FirstGlance Film Month, as well as the first animator we've had on. So thank you.
I'm very flattered. Thank you very much. I had a good time talking with you guys.
Thank you, and we'll hopefully speak to you sometime again in the future. Have a good
I
night.
look forward to that.
So that was Mr. David Baas, everyone. Thank you. I want to remind everyone again, you're watching Film Snobbery live here at www.filmsnobbery.com/live. And if you're not watching it, then you must be watching something else. So I want to announce real quick, or rather I'm going to have Jerry announce the winner of the first contest that you saw at the first half of the show. Jerry, what's up?
Yes, Nick. Hi. After a quick little discussion, the winner of the first contest is Mr. Wendell Films. So congratulations,
Nice.
Mr. Wendell Films. I know you've only been on Twitter for 2 weeks, but sir, you're good at it.
See, I got to
So
tell you,
congratulations.
it pays to not only be on Twitter, and it also pays to be in with Film Snobbery Live, because you get free stuff from Film Snobbery Live in conjunction with FirstGlance Films. So congratulations,
What?
sir. You're going to win yourself a Movie Maker magazine subscription for 1 year, and it's a great gift. Believe me, I read it all the time. Jerry, what else you got?
I was going to say it also pays to wait, because now we're doing another contest. This contest is for a Movie Maker magazine subscription and a T-shirt.
And a T-shirt.
So, yes.
How can
and
we
again,
afford to do
courtesy
this
of
and still stay in
FirstGlance Films.
business?
And I'm going to write it in the chat right now what you have to write and tweet out. This is shorter than the first one, but be careful. Don't trick yourself on the URL. There's a link at the end of it. Don't mess that up, or you don't win. So first person to tweet that out, you can win.
All right, so Jerry's going to put that up. Says, help at Film Snobbery kickstart his way to FirstGlance Film with a link. So get that. We're going to go back to Jerry in a couple of minutes after the next interview, and we'll get the results of the winner of that. But first, I want to hip everyone to our next interview. Our next interviewee is a gentleman who is a documentarian. and his film, Brushes with Life, actually touches upon a really interesting topic. If anyone out there is interested in movies like No Kidding Me 2 that Joe Pantoliano did about mental illness and some of the people that suffer with that, you're probably going to enjoy Brushes with Life because it creates a kind of it shows the similarities between creative people and people with mental illness by profiling real individuals and as well as that you may not have heard of, as well as some individuals that you may have heard of in the past. So what we're going to do first is we're going to show you the trailer for Philip Brubaker's Brushes with Life, and when we come back we'll be speaking with Philip himself, and then after that we'll see where the show takes us. So stick around, we're going to show you that trailer right now.
And I know that this probably is not true, but it seems so, that mental illness may create a more creative person.
People involved with mental health do have a very strong creative spirit.
Because we think outside the box.
I think often I really write for myself. It feeds something inside me.
Is there yet not another way than to destroy this precious little jar of clay?
So many people want to throw us away, and that really pisses me off.
There's so many negatives with mental illness. There's side effects from the medication, there's the stigma.
And they always have like horror films and stuff like escape mental patients and things like that, you know. So I think that the world looking in is like kind of like judgmental of me. When I paint, I don't really think about anything else. I kind of just zone out.
Imagine robots on skateboards bumping into each other's shadows. It's we I speak of on our appointed hallway for at least 72 hours. Bumping into each other's shadows. Different diagnoses, the same pathos. We push past each other, heading for the same place.
I don't want to be too cheeky about it, but maybe something over here. That's good. Is that...
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome a very special guest tonight, the director of the movie, that trailer that you just saw. I want to welcome Mr. Philip Brubaker to the show. Hello, Philip. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am doing fabulous. Thank you for coming on the show. You were the second guest of our month-long First Glance Film Month and coverage. We're really excited. I'm actually excited to... I would love to see your movie at some point. We're going to have to arrange that. Hopefully I can see it live in L.A.
Maybe I could get it into a film festival in Massachusetts somewhere.
That would even better, one way or another. I'm a lazy man. If I can go somewhere in pajama bottoms, I'm like good to go. No, so you know your documentary touches on a really interesting subject, and that is mental illness. And I've seen a few other documentaries touching upon this as well that's come out in the past couple of years. But yours specifically has this correlation between mental illness and art. And what really kind of attracted you to that project?
Well, the thing that attracted me to the project was that I was in fact a participant in this gallery that was in question, because I've myself been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which was handed down to me about 10 years ago. I first started to have some problems with mental health. And the story behind the movie is that it's about an art gallery which brings all these different artists together who suffer from mental illness. And these are people from different backgrounds, different levels of education, and different mediums of art. But the only stipulation is that to have your art shown in this gallery, you have to have been a patient at the Neurosciences Hospital, because the artwork is shown in the halls of the Neurosciences Hospital. It's not in a museum. So I was myself a patient there. It was almost 10 years ago now. And one good thing that came out of that was that I could now show my still photography at the gallery itself. Now, before I started to have mental health trouble, I did go to film school. I had to leave early because I was having problems.
I was going to say, which came first, the mental illness or film school? Because I think that, you know, a lot of filmmakers would probably try to find a correlation there too.
Yeah, well, I guess you have to be a little crazy to be a filmmaker, I think. Maybe I just took it a little bit too far.
Quite possibly. So, no, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Continue. You went to
I
film
was
school.
Saying, I'd always wanted to be a filmmaker, and I even made films as a little kid using, we rented a video camera for holidays, and I would make short films with my sister, even going back to when I was 8 years old. So it was always a dream to be a filmmaker, and then I was actually in the process of going for that dream when things started to, go off kilter. Now, unfortunately, while medication for mental illness can be good for stabilizing a person's mood, it can also sort of slow them down. And for a while there, when I was getting used to the medication, I just didn't have the confidence to do movies. So instead, I would just do still photography. And so I would show my still photography in the gallery for the next, few years, and it was getting more and more noticed, and people were buying some of the photographs, and they just kept getting accepted to the gallery rotation. So it's very encouraging. So I got to a place after I went back and got my bachelor's degree where I wanted to go back to actually making movies again. And so I decided that I would make a documentary about this art gallery that had been so good to me over the years. And I will say that one of the great things about documentaries is that you can make them fairly cheaply, as long as you have the equipment. You shouldn't have to pay anybody to be in your movie, and if you can get some people to work for free, then that's really the way to do it. So, but the thing was, I never intended this movie to be seen like outside of my hometown, because I started the movie with a borrowed video camera with the intention that I would show it on like the local public access TV station, but just along the way, like things started happening, and I started meeting people like in my own hometown who had Hollywood connections, and it was really mind-boggling. And then the movie kind of took off, and this is the very first film festival it's ever been shown in.
Okay, and I've noticed, I was kind of trying to do a little bit of prep for the show today, and I know everyone out there is shocked, like prep, maybe 5 minutes? But no, I did some prep for the show, and I was kind of looking through your filmography, and I noticed that you had done this movie, this documentary called Squish Story.
That's right, yeah.
What compelled you to make a 4-hour-long movie, or is that an error?
Well, no, it's not an error. It's actually 4 hours long. But speaking of movies that would never be seen outside of my hometown, that is the one right there. I think maybe only 10 people have seen it, but it was a documentary that I made when I was in high school, and it's about a good friend of mine who wrote an original musical when he was in high school, and he had it staged at a local art center, and the movie was all about getting the musical ready. And then one reason that it's really as long as it is because not only did I include all the preparation, but I included the whole musical in its entirety in the film, so that makes it pretty long. But I will say that back in 1996, it was a lot easier to get movies listed on the Internet Movie Database than it is now, because that is a film that really hardly anybody has seen, and I kind of put it up there when I was 16 years old as a joke, and miraculously it's still up there, and even some people who were in the documentary have gone on to have acting careers, and they have, real pages now where they've acted in other movies, so that's kind of cool to have been the springboard for that.
So everybody, keep Squish Story on the DL, because we want to make sure it stays listed. Now,
I really had to. It was a struggle to get my later films listed too. I mean, I had to be invited by Without a Box, which even the Hollering contest film, which had been seen at a festival in LA actually, but I still couldn't enter it in until Without a Box invited me.
Now, speaking of Without a Box and using them in their services, you've obviously submitted to film festivals, one of them being the FirstGlance Film Festival, which is why you're here tonight. Do you have a favorite festival or screening story to share with our audience?
You mean like going to one or having a film in one?
Going to one, having one of your films in one. Like, was there any one particular film festival that treated you really well, or that you got an overwhelmingly positive response from the audience from, or just something interesting that the audience might be able to listen to or watch? Because otherwise they're just looking at me, and that ain't right.
Well, they can look at that awesome photo of me with my makeshift Steadicam. But I'd say the most rewarding and moving moment so far, it was the very first time I screened Brushes with Life, and I screened it, in my hometown, which is where the gallery was and where a lot of people who were in the movie were, and they brought their loved ones, and it was the very first time that it was like a packed house, which was only like 200 people, but after the film was over, I got up and I went to the front of the stage so that I could turn and answer questions. And I got up there and I turned around, and everybody just stood up and started cheering and applauding, and it was just really amazing to get a standing ovation like that, when it was completely unexpected.
Now,
so that would be like probably my favorite moment as a filmmaker, having a film shown publicly. But one sad dilemma about the FirstGlance Film Festival is that it's happening the exact same weekend as the Full Frame Documentary Film Festival, which is just half an hour away from me here in North Carolina. And that's a festival I go to every year. It's the preeminent documentary film festival in the country. But I know that it would definitely be worth it to go to FirstGlance this year, so I had to make that decision.
Well, hopefully we get you over to the FirstGlance one, bring you over to the good side of the force. No, I'm sure they're both just as equally as good. Hopefully FirstGlance wins out.
It will win out. I'm going. I requested the time off from work. I just got to figure out a place to stay.
I know the feeling. We're hoping to get there too. So hopefully I can shake your hand when I see you. So, Brushes with Life is also an art gallery where some of the people that you spoke with and some of the art that was made is on display. Where is that gallery if people wanted to see some of the works presented in your film?
Well, it's at UNC Hospitals, and UNC Hospitals at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill Hospitals. They're, I think, an internationally known hospital. They have a great reputation, and if anybody was in the area, I guess, and wanted to go see it, you would just find the UNC Hospital campus and go to the Neurosciences building, and then you go up to the third floor, and that's where the gallery is. There's hallways leading to, the restricted area, where the only way that you can go through there is if you are, register as a visitor and clear it with the staff. But the rest of the hallway is public. So really, you can go in at like any hour of the day. I mean, I think maybe visiting hours end at 9, but you can go there anytime up until 9. Just go up to the third floor, walk around, and you'll see all kinds of different artwork. I mean, nice. Paintings, photography, etc.
Nice. I'm a big fan of art galleries myself. I enjoy going to the Museum of Fine Arts here in Boston, and I love going to the Museum of Modern Art over in New York, and all that other stuff. I just enjoy that kind of stuff. So I highly encourage everyone to get some culture out there. Come on. You profiled some people in your film. Have they seen the movie yet, or has anyone in the film seen the movie yet? And what were their reactions to seeing themselves in this documentary?
Right. Yes, everybody in the movie has seen it, and there's been a couple different versions because we're a candidate for broadcast on the North Carolina public television service, and so we had to whittle down the film to that length, and that sort of became the final version. Overall, people liked it, I think. I mean, nobody was really upset with the way they were portrayed, and I made a point to treat everybody respectfully and not and not show people material that cast them in a bad light. But the thing was, there wasn't really a lot to hide because everybody was very forthcoming about their experiences, and I know that for some of them, it's even helped them sell more work. So I don't think anybody regrets being in it. I think people are pretty pleased with the result.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you again for being on the show tonight. We're going to wrap it up a little bit because we've got so much more show to pack into. But thank you for being the second guest of the evening and the second guest for our First Glance Film Month. I really do hope that I get a chance to see your movie, whether it's here in Massachusetts or whether it's actually in LA at the First Glance Film Festival in April. But it's a subject that really interests me. I'm a fan of art and fan of people with mental illness. I don't know, but I'm a fan of all of that.
There's a lot of famous mentally ill artists out there. I mean, there's a ton of them.
There is, and you made a point of mentioning that. I think you make a point of mentioning that in your film too. That a lot of the most famous artists out there have suffered from mental illness. And another movie about, or another documentary specifically about mental illness that I would add as a companion film to Brushes with Life is check out No Kidding Me Too by Joe Pantoliano, which I actually screened at the previous year's Connecticut Film Festival. I loved it, fell in love with it. That's another reason why it makes me very very anxious to see your film. I really want to kind of enjoy that because it combines a lot of stuff that I find interesting. But thank you for coming on the show. Congratulations on getting into the First Glance Film Festival in Hollywood, and hopefully we'll see what you come up with next. So definitely keep us surprised, and again, congratulations and thank you for being on the show.
Okay, thanks a lot for having me, Nick.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. You have a great night, and I want to now take it back over to our good friend Jerry Cavallaro, director of such movies as Stuck Like Chuck and the upcoming Stuck Like Chuck 2, with some little bit of news for us regarding the winner of the second contest. So take it away, Jerry.
Yes, I would like to congratulate Rainy Cat. You tried on the first one, now you succeeded with the second one. So congratulations, you won a 1-year subscription to Movie Maker magazine as well as a t-shirt.
Yay!
So Nick will be contacting you shortly.
Actually, what I'll have you do, Rainy Cat, is I would like you to please email me over at nick@filmsnobbery.com. That's NIC@filmsnobbery.com. And I would actually encourage our previous winner to do the same thing. And please send me your, any well wishes that you want to, of course, and pleasantries, but also your name, address, and telephone number, the whole 9 yards, so that I can make sure I can expedite your prizes as soon as I can. I also wanted to thank everyone else who has already won, who has contributed their time. Just to let everyone know, everyone who has won a contest with all this First Glance Film stuff is entered into a raffle for a as of yet to be determined prize, but entered into a raffle to actually win a big prize. And we'll be announcing that hopefully at sometime at the end of March, probably beginning of April-ish. So stick in there. Stick with us. Again, email me, nick@filmsnobbery.com. There's no K at the end of Nick. Too good for that. It's pedestrian. So, speaking of unrelated topics, Jerry, what the hell is going on over at Tribeca? I hear there's news coming out of there like crazy.
Yes, there's a lot of stuff going on at Tribeca. Just a few days ago, they announced their opening night film, which is a very low-budget indie film that I'm sure no one's ever heard of, Shrek 4.
Shrek 4, you say?
That's pissing off a lot of people. Although I don't really see why so many people are upset with it. I mean, obviously, you expect a more independent film to be there. However, a few years ago, New York Minute, starring the Olsen twins, made by a giant studio, was the opening night film of the Tribeca Film Festival. And the Tribeca Film Festival has actually never really classified themselves as an independent film festival. They've never declared themselves to be like a Sundance. Like Sundance keeps every year, we're indie, we're indie, we're indie. Tribeca never really does that. Tribeca they try to highlight independent filmmakers, but they always do squeeze in films from bigger studios, and they always have other films and major stars there. And it was actually originally started by Robert De Niro to bring money back into New York after September 11th. So they started it with bigger films. So it's always kind of had that whole, Hollywood feel to it as well. It's just now they kind of really pissed off a lot of independent filmmakers by choosing Shrek 4 instead of, maybe a somewhat New York related movie or a somewhat indie film.
It just sounds like Shrek 4 doesn't sound like something that should play at any film festival, regardless. Like Shrek 4 to me does not come off as a festival film. Especially, you don't see a lot of, unless it's a specifically kid-friendly film festival, you generally don't see a lot of kids at film festivals.
That's another thing, and I'm not even sure who gets to go to the opening night films, because last year when I attended it as press, I attended the Tribeca Film Festival for an unnamed site. That's pretty unique. I wasn't even able to get into the opening night film, which was Whatever Works from Woody Allen, and I could see that as an opening night film because it's a low budget film. I guess it's an indie film in the sense of indie nowadays. Right. But that kind of fits. And even New York Minute, that was a studio film, but at least it was related to New York, and it was all about New York, that movie. Mm-hmm. This really is, completely out of there. And again, it's a kid's film.
Fair enough.
So it's kind of a weird choice.
But Tribeca's got something else going on, and you kind of hit me to it a little bit. You kind of gave me the lowdown. They're opening up their own kind of distribution arm with this VOD offering. Explain this concept.
I'll get a link to the IndieWire article on that, which I found earlier today. I'll put that right in the chat.
Please do.
And it's kind of interesting. They're trying to go a video on demand route with some of their films. Some of the films that are playing at the festival will have a day and date release video on demand, so people at home all around the world will be able to view the film the same time the film is playing at the festival, the same day that the film opens at the festival. And also there's also some films that are feature films that have played previous festivals, such as a film that I know we both love, Timer.
I love me some Timer.
I've been wondering when that film was going to be released. I loved it when I saw it at the Tribeca Film Festival last year. And, Jack Schaefer, who directed it, she's a great person. She was really nice. And I've talked to her a few times. You've talked to her a lot more than I have. And we've been like, when are you going to release this film? And she's like, oh, we're working on it. And that was in the summer. And now they finally announced that it's going to be video on demand through Tribeca Video on Demand. So I have no idea when it's actually going to release, if it's going to ever be released in theaters or on DVD or what, but it will be video on demand through Tribeca Film Festival.
Well, it's definitely, I definitely can't wait to watch it. I really enjoyed Timer. For those of you who don't know, again, directed by Jack Schaefer, starring Emma Caulfield and a bunch of other people from Dexter and Gossip Girl. It's a really decent, good independent movie, and if you want to look at some really good press for it, you have no need to look any further than timerthemovie.com, and you can see quotes by such personalities as Jerry Cavallaro and Nic Baisley from FilmSnobbery on the various pages that are on there from the reviews that we've done. It's really good. I want to take a quick moment to, first of all, we also mentioned the second thing that's going on with our Kickstarter campaign. We want to go to FirstGlance Film Festival in LA and give you guys superior coverage there. However, the other thing that's going on that same weekend we mentioned is the Streamy Awards. It's basically the Oscars for web series. I don't know how this got out, but we're a web series. Now, while we're not nominated this year, it's very important for us to get out there to make sure that we let people know that FilmSnobbery is a web series and that we are on a quest to get nominated for next year's Streamy Awards. For that being said, they just announced the nominees for the Streamies yesterday, and I want to congratulate everybody who got nominated, and there's so many. I want to congratulate the people from the Band and Way for the several nominations they got. I want to thank and congratulate previous guests from Film Snobbery, David Nett and Andrew Deutsch, thank you. And Andrew Deutsch of Gold, the series, for their nomination as well. I really, I want to thank so many other people, congratulate so many other people. I want people to learn more about the Streamies, and I highly recommend you do, because it's going to be more important in the years to come. You can go to the Streamies, Streamies.org. That's STREAMYS.org. So definitely check that out. And yes. So that, Jerry, thank you for being with me as usual as a co-host on this show. But we're gonna wrap it up, because that's what we do.
Okay.
When it gets this time of night. I want to thank our guests.
Time to say goodbye.
It is. It's so sad. I want to thank our guest, David Baas. I also want to thank our other guest, Philip Brubaker. You can check both of their films out at the FirstGlance Film Festival in Hollywood in April. And I cannot stress enough how much we would like to be there. And you know, we're not the only person, though, that are out here panhandling for money. Our co-host, Jerry Cavallaro, recently just launched an Indiegogo campaign that for his new movie, Stuck Like Chuck 2. He needs help as well, folks, so he's looking to raise about, how much is it, Jerry? 30 grand?
30,000, yeah.
He's looking to raise $30,000 to shoot his new movie. It's not a sequel, but just as pointless. He really wants to shoot this down in Florida. He's looking to do it not this time, not entirely on his own. So give support when you can, even $1. Everyone needs $1 at least.
And we have tons of perks, and even $1 gets music downloads and all kinds of other stuff.
Exactly.
So whatever you can do to help.
And while our Kickstarter campaign isn't giving you anything more than a thank you, understand that we offer you hours upon hours of free content for over a year now. So please, thank you. But as for Jerry, though, I wanna give him a plug, and I want to give Indiegogo a plug as well. So go check out his project over at www.indiegogo.com/what, Jerry?
Stuck Like Chuck 2.
There you go. And to give you a little taste of that, I want to kind of show you guys his pitch video, which we're going to bring up next.
Thank you. Thanks, Nick.
You're welcome, Mr. Jerry Cavallaro.
What a surprise.
So I'm going to show you his pitch video, and then we're going to cue credits. So there's that. So thank you, folks. I appreciate you guys all coming out, and you guys all have a great one. Also, check out what's going on with the Spirit Awards next week. So, goodbye. Good night, everybody. Good night.
Bye.
Two.
Hope you enjoyed the pitch.